Okay, you probably did, and I've been getting so many emails lately, I forgot.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no problem.
Well, very good. It being 5:30 and the meeting posted and a quorum present, I'll call this meeting to order of the Shelburne Select Board for July 17th. I want to disclose I am coming to you from the Franklin Medical Center Emergency Department Room 18. My lab values came back abnormal and they feel I need fluids and things like that. So here I am remoting in from the hospital. I feel fine. It's just apparently my labs are off. So that's the case. In case things happen, if I hop on and off, it's because either a doctor or a nurse is coming in.
Hats off to you, Bob.
All right. So first order of business is acceptance of the minutes of June 20th and July 10th. I know the July 10th ones just came out. Has everyone had the opportunity to look at them?
Yes.
Yes. Everyone find them in order?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Is there a motion?
I would move we accept both minutes as prepared.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by please saying aye. Rick.
Aye.
Andrew.
Aye.
And myself is aye. Very good. Moving on to department liaison reports. Andrew, even though you don't have a department, you have, I'm sure, stuff to report.
Yeah. Well, as I just mentioned to Pat Stevenson, the Pratt Building Committee will meet on this Thursday, the 20th. So that'll be their first meeting in quite a while, and I will be attending that. The Energy Committee is also meeting on the 20th at the same time, so I will not be attending that meeting. However, Cynthia Bettner has called in and requested us to update business owners in town that the Mass Save program, which she is our staff person for, has new incentives coming out in August specifically for small business owners for energy efficiency improvements they might want to make. And there will be a Mass Save rep attending the next business after hours meeting in Shelburne Falls, which is taking place on July 19th at 5:30. And I don't know the location of that meeting. I think in the past they have met at M&T Bank, but I don't know where they're meeting on the 19th. So Cynthia may be on during the end of the meeting during public comment, or she may not. So I'm kind of putting in this little preview for her. But we will also be talking about other energy committee stuff later on in the agenda. The FRTA had its grand opening last month, and in their new facility, I was not able to attend, but that's their latest development. And the Memorial Hall Association, which I'll also be talking about later in the agenda, is having its next meeting on the 18th, tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, and we'll be talking about their capital campaign, which I'll also be talking about later in the agenda. And Bob, just FYI, the FERCOG is on this Thursday, the 20th at 5:30.
Yeah, I'm planning on being there.
Okay.
Yeah, I responded that I will, and this, I mean, for the hydration, no more than a day and a half, and that'll be here just getting fluids.
Well, if you have
Thursday, I should be out and about.
Let us know. I am available then if you need backup.
Okay.
Do that. But just thought I'd
appreciate that.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. That's what I got.
All right. Rick.
Police liaison information. We've been communicating regularly of late. There are policy updates needed as part of the merging of Buckland into the Shelburne, and those will come up later in the agenda. The cruiser issue, there is a place holding purchase order now in place, waiting for town meeting, tentatively set for August 14th, for the funding for that, so we can get out of the hole of a deficit of a cruiser to replace the one that we decided to liquidate. It's not worth repairing. And at our most recent select board meeting, we did meet to interview applicants for the 2 new officer positions, and letters have been sent to all 3. Town hall, I meet about weekly with Terry. I finally did catch up and have a nice meeting with the treasurer, and actually a couple of times. Requested a current list of tax delinquencies from her for Terry and I and her to take a preliminary look at the possibility of finding reasons revenues have not been up to expectation a little bit, and it hasn't been looked at for some time, and she hasn't delivered on that as yet.
I'm sorry, Rick, can you say that again? I missed that. Something about revenues?
I asked the treasurer to prepare a list of delinquencies, tax delinquencies, so that we could give it a look at any potential, see if it's possibly in part responsible for tax revenue expectations not being where they were expected to be. They have been looked at in some time, is my understanding, and I thought it was time to give it a quick review. And so she will be preparing that for us to take a peek at. Lastly, the veterans, I did finally catch up and have a nice conversation with Chris Damaris, is it? We established a good line of communications, a process. I mentioned previously, I found some errors that Terry was able to update on our website about the Veteran Center services. When speaking to him, I found out, yet there was a more critical one. It's an error, not on our site, but on their own state site, where the West County Outreach Center was formerly in the Buckland Town Hall, I believe, and it was noted as suspended due to COVID till further notice. I found out that that's incorrect, and they're having trouble getting somebody to change it for them. There's in fact a regular reach out. I think it's the 4th Wednesday of every month, and it's actually in our own senior center on Main Street. So I had Terry add that information to our page, and it's at least out there correctly there. And that's all I have in reports.
Thank you, Rick. So for the speaking in the senior center where they're meeting up, things are going well over there. They are still working the process of trying to get their IT portion back up, but they have a couple of new volunteers. One of them is a 17-year-old local teenager who is willing to come in and do phone and tablet education to the seniors. So, you know, he's willing to spend time and say, okay, this is how you run a tablet or a smartphone and those type of things. So they're very pleased that they're getting, you know, some volunteers in. They still need more volunteers, especially in and around their handyman program, handy person program to help seniors do odd jobs around the house. But otherwise, things are going well over there. From the highway department side, things have been a little exciting around town with the amount of water that we've had over the past week or so. We have closed Brook Road due to washouts. On a couple of the banks have eroded right up to the road edge and starting to undermine the road. So it's not safe for people to be traveling there. So the Brook Road is closed for, we're not sure how long. But it's going to be a project to get the washouts fixed. It's going to be involve conservation and things of that nature. But I've got some pictures that show how much erosion occurred between Monday's 4.5 inches of rain and Saturday's 2 inches of rain. It really pushed a lot of water down through there. In addition, Cooper Lane, the road is closed as well because of the amount of water that's coming down off of Mount Massimo. They're doing their best to keep it graded and the water diverted off the bleeders. It is technically passable, but keeping it closed is just preventing it from getting worse. So we do have several road closures around town secondary to the amount of water that has come down. Dragon Brook at the intersection of South Shelburne Road and Bartles Ferry Road jumped the banks twice, once on last Monday and once on, well, Sunday. It was Sunday when we had the rain. Sunday where it came up and rose and flooded across the road at that intersection. And I've got pictures of that as well. And we're hopes that perhaps we can apply for a hazard mitigation grant to redirect the brook so that we know exactly where it's jumping and why. It's just when the culverts were installed, they were installed at one particular angle, and the brook decided to change directions a little further up, so it's jumping the stream. And in order to get the stream bed back to where it belongs, we're perhaps see if we can get funding through hazard mitigation, because that's become a nuisance area over the past years. So that's what's happening with the highway department. Terry, do you have anything you want to share?
The elevator repair is nearing completion. It will remain in a locked status until the state inspector comes out and signs off on it. It did require some unforeseen work to the fire alarm panel because the software in the elevator was upgraded. The fire alarm panel needed to be upgraded so that it now talks to the elevator in the event of an emergency. So I think that was an additional $2,000. So we'll see where the bill ends up coming out, but I'm excited that finally we're going to be back up and running again soon.
Excellent. Thank you.
I just have a question, Bob.
Yep.
Just for Rick, are we holding back on announcing the police department hires, or is that process complete?
I held back purposely because I felt it inappropriate to release those names when they hadn't even got a letter in their receipt from Terry with the offers.
So that process is still underway then?
I haven't not an update.
Yeah, if you'd like an update on that, letters were sent to both officers and they both have accepted the positions. One was as late as Friday, I believe, the second officer.
Oh, good. Okay. No, I just thought we were complete on that project, so I thought we should let our citizens know who their new officers are.
Did the candidate that was passed over, have they been notified as well?
Yes, they were notified as well.
So at this point, there's no reason why we can't announce the officers, Rick, if you'd like.
They were in the minutes of the second one, which I read off my phone because I was in Pennsylvania and unable to print it when I got it this afternoon. So I don't have that in front of me. I think there was a second that released their names.
I would like to welcome Jeffrey Belanger and Chris Pettengill to our police force.
Great. Well, congratulations. It's not often that Shelburne hires 2 officers in one shot there.
Yes.
That's news.
Yeah. Both officers have worked in and around the area. So they're experienced and familiar with the town, and we felt that their community policing concepts and their approach was a good fit for the department, and we're very excited to bring them on.
Great,
all right.
thank you.
We have 15 minutes before our first appointment and hearing, so we can move to old business, streetlights, which we're kind of tabled until August 1st, but I think there's some other stuff going on in and around that.
We have them at 6:20, Bob.
Pardon?
They're coming in at 620 to present the piece they sent to us.
Oh,
couple
okay,
weeks
very
ago.
good, yep. All right. So,
Cowell Gym update.
pardon?
The Cowell Gym update would be the next one under old
Yes,
business.
correct.
We could squeeze in.
So we have John with us. So welcome, John. Thank you for coming in. So we have the Cal Gym HVAC project update. I drove by it today and it's looking pretty good.
Thanks, Bob. I tried to send it, it was kind of late. I sent an email to you with some photographs. Obviously the project is ongoing. The 4 outside compressors were delivered and they have been placed on the pad. Of the 4, 2 of them today were starting to be plumbed and run into the building. There was a bit of a challenge with getting through some of the foundation, so we lost a little time. I didn't, they did, in getting the penetrations into the basement. However, that's finally been completed. And there are some pictures that show the 12 to 13 feet of outside refrigeration lines that are now covered and will be covered if they're not completely covered at this point. All of the heads for the units are in place. The gym has 8 units. The office has 1 unit upstairs. There's 1 in the lobby. There is 1 in the food bank. There are 2 in the Trinity Church area for the clothing exchange. There will be 2 in the basement where the original teen center used to be, and 1 in each room when you come in where equipment is stored for the town elections and the room next to that. I did speak with Jason Palmieri this afternoon. They are hoping that they should be able to complete the installation in the next 2 to 3 days. After that, once he's fixed setting the refrigerant line sets, Palmieri will be coming in, and that should be a day or a day and a half worth of electrical connections. After that's completed, then we will need to have the manufacturer come out and actually commission the equipment to make sure that it's properly installed, which could take a week to 2 for that to occur with the timeline of getting an appointment with their local regional commission people. One minor change that I've talked with, and I think it would be fine, and I don't know if you need a vote on this, but originally the lobby head and the office head, the lobby head was actually going to come outside the south door by the collection. That was the only spot that we originally knew we might have to run lines outside. After looking at all of the different angles and turns, and each time you make a 90-degree, you have to add more line, all that type of stuff. Jason Jamrog felt it would be more beneficial and nicer looking if we actually just came up with a small hole inside the original southwest door where the padding is for the basketball hoops. And then that would go directly up into the storage area above the lobby. And then it would run across there and down into the office and into the head for the lobby itself. I said I would pass it by you to see if you had any additional concerns or concepts, considering the fact that originally we were talking about putting 8 lines up inside the gym. We're now down to 1 line. I think it would not make, if anything, it would just improve the look, since we don't have to run multiple angles and multiple feet of refrigerated light outside and around that entrance to the southwest building.
Oh, I think that's reasonable. And like I said, when I drove by today, what I saw from the outside lines and the covering blended well into the building. So I didn't find it intrusive. Andrew or Rick, any questions to John?
I have a few questions, but I'm fine with the modification you proposed.
Yeah, me as well.
Me as well.
All right, thank you.
John, I just have a couple of questions about the other aspect of the project. In the heads that are going into all those separate rooms you described, not the main gym room, but all the little rooms, are those all separately zoned?
Yes, they're each head will have its own thermostat control, which will be tied into into the director's office. We're still discussing how to set thermostats and where to set those thermostats. We'll definitely need to lock them so that they can't be manipulated, but the building should be able to be controlled once a schedule is agreed upon to maintain minimum temperatures when it's not occupied, and then set it so that they come on soon enough before it's being occupied to bring temperatures up to bring the room up to temperature. And I think that's part of the discussion of what has to happen with the scheduling and who's going to control it. But my thinking is that the director will be in charge of that with input from the board and as to what the schedule should be.
Yeah, no, well, that was sort of my second question, which was about controls either in those separate rooms, or sounds like you're planning a master control from the director's office. And I just wonder, in terms of, the different users of the building, the food bank and the clothing group and others, will they be able to turn the heat or cooling on or off themselves, or will they have to require the recreation chair to come and turn those things on for them?
Sure, and I will clarify this with Jason, but my understanding is that each individual head will have its own remote thermostat that can be set. We can then, with a master control, set how high and how low those limits are. So even if somebody says they wanted 80 degrees of heat, we could limit that through the master controlling, so it can't be turned up too high or too low when it's occupied.
That's
But
good.
I will, yeah, I'll confirm that.
The only other thing I mentioned in that regard is, having just put in some mini splits in my house, each head comes with a little portable remote controller that you can put into a holster on the wall. And I just wonder if we're getting the same approach with this system, and just wanted to make sure that those little remote controls don't just sort of float around, because they can go missing.
Andrew,
Correct.
it'll be set up much like town hall. We all have thermostats on our walls, but the master
good.
control is in my office.
Great. Okay. Just wanted to confirm that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and that we still need to refine that a little bit. I mean, I was looking into seeing if there was some type of a internet-based system that we could have somebody control it remotely, but that would be thousands of dollars added onto the project, which doesn't seem necessary if we take the time to set the limits on each of the master thermostat.
Yep.
No, I'm fine with the way Terry's described it. I think that if it can be controlled in the room and also remote, from the master, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So schedule-wise, we hope to be done in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Awesome. Thank you, John.
Great.
Any other questions for John, or John, anything else you'd like to report?
No, I'll keep you updated.
No other
Andrew?
questions for John. No, I just had a question for Rick. Rick, you had a concern about me reporting out on the meeting we had regarding the decision we took on the exterior lines, and I didn't know if that was something you wanted to discuss while we're on this topic.
Well, I think we'll get to the same subject matter later in the meeting when we discuss that. But yes, my concern was that we now know.
Would have a second option.
There we go. Yes, when you respond to an email string with 9 I think there were 9 people on it, mostly committee members. And it was like everybody was responding in War and Peace linked articles, and just pontificating back and forth. It precluded any reasonable conversation to happen because 2's a quorum. So I couldn't mention anything. Bob couldn't mention anything. And I felt it was inappropriate, given the fact that we both knew, or we all knew, that you were not actually supposed to be on the Energy Committee. So yeah, that's what I had mentioned.
We had clarified at the last meeting that I was serving as liaison to the Energy Committee.
There was no vote on that.
Is that true, Terry? Are we not clear on that?
I think it needs to be clarified when we get down to new business C. That way we can define it and it will be spelled out that way moving forward.
Okay, I thought we had done that.
No.
No, we have not done that.
Okay.
Right. So we'll readdress that under item C under new business. We have 4 minutes before a public hearing. Andrew, can we do Pocket Park project update?
Sure, I don't have 4 minutes worth on that. There's nothing new to report. We have submitted a grant application to the Commonwealth Spaces program, and we are still waiting to hear on that.
Okay. West County Senior Service District Board of Managers appointees, that has been tabled. Any movement on that, Terry?
It's my understanding that the Council on Aging or Board of Managers are sending out a postcard to individuals in each of the towns, hoping to seek some representation.
Because I am aware that Buckland and Asheville are having problems finding.
I think Ashfield has one, Buckland has none at this
Right.
point.
All right. Franklin County Tech School District Representative, we'd like to welcome Dr. Robert Miller. He sent a letter of interest and has been appointed to the Tech School Committee. His granddaughter graduated from there and was impressed with the school and wanted to become more involved in the tech school community. So that's a really wonderful thing with that happening. Any update on relocation of the Veterans Memorial?
Nothing yet.
Okay. I think probably item F is going to take a little longer than the minute and a half that we have left for the meeting, which is newsletter guidelines. So with that, we'll move forward. I see Linda's here and Mike Carter's here. So we have the key players for that. So it's kind of a watch a pot, never boil component where we have
1 more minute.
1 more minute. So if you need to get up, stretch your legs, whatever. So Linda, how are you? That's good.
Everybody.
And Mike, good to see you. Thank you for coming. All right, close enough. It being 6 o'clock, the town of Shelburne will hold a public hearing on Monday, July 7th, 2023 at 6 p.m. This note is a remote meeting via Zoom and has the link. The purpose of this hearing is to receive public comment on the performance and outcomes of the Shelburne FY21 Community Development Block Grant projects undertaken with this grant and Bridge Street Phase 2 improvements and support of the West County Emergency Food Pantry. Any persons or organizations will be given the opportunity to be heard. Written comments may be submitted prior to the hearing to Terry Narkowitz, our town administrator. So that said, welcome, and I call this meeting to the hearing to order and turn it over to Linda to help guide us through.
This is a requirement, having this hearing as a requirement of the CDBG program. We have a public hearing, the grant is actually ongoing. In January of 2021, we were notified, 22, that the town was awarded $793,026 for this grant and to fund 2 projects, food pantry and retreat phase 2. So tonight we have Mike Carter from GCG Associates, the engineering firm overseeing Bridge Street with us. We also have Chia Ramos, who is the food pantry coordinator for Community Action Pioneer Valley that manages the food pantry operation both in Shelburne and in Greenfield. So I thought perhaps have asked Chio first to a brief report on what's been happening with the scripts.
All right, so
Chio.
Yes, can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, just make sure. So hi, how you doing? Joe Ramos, Linda, thank you for the introduction. So what's going on with the food pantry? So, you know, we had an extension from the, what is that, April 22, and to 9/30/23 extended for the grant. So we had 131 residents that have been served through 6/30/23, 5 quarters. The average distribution per meals were 23 pounds per person. West County Emergency Food Pantry has distributed 56,973 pounds of food to date during the FY21 contract, including 19,003 pounds of fresh produce, which the fresh produce is 33% of our distribution. So far in 2021, deliveries regularly to 4 household in addition to 11 that we do twice a month at Highland Village. We deliver weekly to Buckland, Shelburne, and Greenfield Montague residents. Participants can request deliveries online using our online form or by calling us at the pantry directly. We have a few people that do that. The West County Food Pantry is open every Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Participants are welcome to come twice a month for groceries and every week for fresh produce. Community Action Pioneer Valley FY22, 10/1/21 to 9/30/22, West County has served 342 individuals, and overall both pantry locations serve 2968 Franklin County residents. 114.
You're fading away a little bit there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Just
Bring
barely.
your boom mic in a little bit closer.
Better?
Mm-mm.
Something else. Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
I got dogs, so I didn't want the dogs to go barking. Okay, so where should I start over?
Oh,
We got it.
Just the end faded out.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Last
So, all right, so in FY22, West County Pantry served 342 individual overall. Both pantry location was 2968. Franklin County residents, 114 residents were served from Shelburne, and 33 residents use the Greenfield location. So the request for 2023 and 2024 contract, West County Emergency Food Pantry and Community Action, Pioneer Valley have been proud partners to the town of Shelburne and to provide important services of food for insecure residents of the community. We look forward to continuing our partnership and request $25,000 per year or $50,000 total for the next community block grant cycle. And we anticipate serving 139 residents over the 21 months of 10/23 to 6/30/25. Any
So
questions?
without a doubt, the CDBG grant is a significant portion of your funding and provides a lot of service to the West County residents.
Yes.
And that should be really noted because it's a vital service and the grant is hugely part of that.
Right.
Anyone like to comment about the Community Emergency Food, West County Emergency Food Bank and their role and additional thoughts on that? Hold on one second. I'm going mute. So Linda, take over.
I'm just gonna note that, we're hoping to hear this month whether our application for the next CDBG round, for 23-24 has been funded, and that will include, additional funds for the food pantry to keep this program going. So I think, thank you, Chio, for your questions. I think welcome to stay. Well, I think we'll probably turn to the Bridge Street project and talk a little bit about that. Just a little background in that we did go out to bid for this project last spring. GEG construction from Springfield was a low bidder, but the bid did exceed the funds available in the grant. Subsequently, the town committed $118,000 of its ARPA funds to allow us to sign the contract and go into the project with a contingency. A big part of this project is replacing the water main on Bridge Street. And like so many contractors across the country, there was a supply chain issue. So construction didn't start until this April. So now we're kind of at the point of wrapping up the sidewalk construction, but I'm going to turn it over to Mike maybe to just give us a better understanding about what's happened today.
Okay, hi, everybody. My name is Mike Carter, from GCG Associates for the record. It's pretty obvious if you drive down Bridge Street where we are. The road has been, water and sewer has actually been installed. We replaced the sewer across Bridge Street. It was about 21 feet deep. And if you drove down the street, you saw a big rock there that we dug out of the trench. And actually, looks like they went around that rock when they put the sewer in many, many, many years ago. We were able to move it, straighten the line out, and then the water is in place and up and running. If you've seen, the roadway's been put at binder, sidewalk on the banks, we'll call it the bank side of the street. Both banks is completed, except for one small area by the library. And then this week, should complete, weather permitting, the sidewalk on the town hall side up to the ramp. The ramp will come not next week, most likely, but shortly thereafter. They'll replace the ramp and the sidewalk in that area. We're waiting for some materials. And the goal is that the next about one more week of construction after they finish this week, and then we'll go away till the fall and put the top coat down and line stripe the road in September. Actually today they should have been starting to temporarily line stripe the side with the banks on it, and then they'll do the other side once they finish up this week with the sidewalk in front of the businesses. That's kind of where the project stands at this point. We're just about there. Walkway's been going a little slower than I anticipated, but not much control over that. That's it.
Today they were working on ripping up the sidewalks. So from the town hall up to Gypsy Apple is now all removed. From
Yeah.
last I saw around 11:30-ish today. So it'll be good to have the top coat on because that'll bring the drain risers up to be able to handle water rather than flooding the street, which has been kind of exciting during the heavy rains. But it's looking good. Is there anyone who'd like to comment about phase 2 of the Bridge Street project?
This got started before I became a member of the board, so I'm a little behind the 8 ball on that one. Why is it we're waiting till September to do the top coat?
I can answer that if that's okay. Basically, we want to let the trenches settle. The water trench, and in particular that that sewer trench was 22 feet deep. And by giving it as much time as possible to settle, we won't have a dip in the road 2 years
Okay.
down the thing.
Okay, thank you.
The original schedule for completing this phase of the project?
The original schedule was supposed to be done last year. But due to the delay in the supply chain of ductile iron pipe, we're back on. Basically, we pushed everything 1 year ahead. I had anticipated that the sidewalks would have been done by July 1st. They are progressing slower than anticipated, so that's why we're into July.
Okay. I failed to report on the Shelburne Falls Village Task Force meeting that took place last week, and the reason I mentioned it is that a number of businesses have been concerned about the project dragging out through the summer, and just that they're looking ahead to a major construction project next year as well, and so it's been a long several years for the downtown businesses.
Mike, if memory serves me, you were going to try to wait to do the paving after fall foliage to kind of give everyone a break. Is that correct? Or we're going to try to, I mean, it shouldn't take that long to pave it. It should be like a day to do the top coat.
Yeah, it's one day, figure 1 day to raise the castings, and then another day to pave it. And then a week later, we would probably put the permanent line striping down. My recommendation is, we run into this problem. We're putting our top coat down, and out in Shelburne, normally it gets pretty cold in October. And placing top coat at anything less than 40 degrees and rain is not recommended. We end up praying that we can get a good day in October. So my preference would have been done in September and just do it 1 day. It's really 1 day of paving. It's actually probably not even a full day. It's probably a half a day because the tonnage is a lot less than it was previously.
Okay. Anyone else like to comment in regards to the phase 2? All right, Linda, is there anything else we need to talk about regarding this?
I think we're all.
I think we're all set. Before, we'd like to have you stick around after the you and Mike after this, because I'd like to have you weigh in on item G on our agenda, which is under new business about sidewalks near Arms Library and the mosaics that we're considering. So if you could not run away as soon as we close the public hearing, it would be greatly appreciated. All that said and done, is there anyone else that would like to make comments on the CDBG FY21 Community Development Block Grant for Bridge Street Phase 2? Hearing none, I'll bring this hearing to a close and thank everyone for providing their comments and insight. And Linda, does that satisfy the needs for what? All right, excellent. So I'd like to jump ahead real quick. One of the things that had been approached was the Arms Library Director Lori Wheeler wanted to consider some inlays in the sidewalk near Arms Library and do a similar kind of a mosaic component. And Mike, I'd like to get your thought as the engineer on the project in terms of, you know, the impact with how that would impact the project and such. I have spoken with Mark Shippey and such. So Mike and Linda.
Okay, I can speak to that. So basically, the library, Lori, it asked us if we have a section, a small triangle, if you've been out there, where we saved the tree on the corner of the library, or in front of the library, that has not had concrete put in. Originally, it was kind of something that I mentioned that, oh, we can leave this as, you know, a landscape area that something can happen. Decided to put concrete in there and just kind of box out around the tree like we have on the other one, so it'll look very similar. And then basically, the goal is we're going to concrete most of that area, and there's been a request to put a mosaic in. I'm not sure of all the dimensions and the particulars of what it's going to be. It's going to be, if from what I understand, flush with the sidewalk. Most likely, there's going to, you know, those sidewalks are going to get sand and salt, a lot of it. Just as if you do it, beware that it could get destroyed pretty easily because it's right on the curb line. It is a spot where you're going to sand and salt quite a bit in front of the library steps. It's really the town's personal choice if they want to do that. It's up to you.
You,
You,
you're muted, Bob.
Bob. Still
Still
muted.
muted.
Still muted.
You can't read lips. All right.
There you go.
Linda, do you have any thoughts in regards to how that will impact funding in terms of the grant if this was to be allowed?
I think it's the town's choice. I think the grant funder would be, the concern would be, does it keep the space handicapped accessible? Because that was a, you know, smooth, accessible surface. That would be a concern of mine. Because it seems like it looks like some beautiful mosaics that this artist had done, but they're very, very small stones. It's not a smooth surface arrested the sidewalk, and people walk on sidewalks, especially in Shelburne. People who don't know the area walk 4 or 5 abreast, and they'll walk on anything that's not concrete. So that's a concern that perhaps, and also that I think it does void the contractor's warranty. Obviously, they're not installing that. So if there's any subsequent issues with that section of the sidewalk, we would not have our warranty to seek redress. It's the town's responsibility once sidewalks are in to maintain them. So it's also a way that it does get worn down and degrade. It's a lower surface. It's going to have to be repaired. Repaired. The idea is it wouldn't be a lot. So that decision about whether they want to take on future maintenance in a different manner.
Okay. So Lori, I know you had submitted an idea regarding this, and could you just give us a little brief overview so we can kind of do it? I should have actually gotten to you first and then Linda and Mike. Kind of did a little backwards, sorry.
That's a-okay. Thanks for fitting this all in. As I was saying, the concrete being poured, I thought it would be a great time to actually have a small mosaic put in. It's in the place where the large tree has been kept in front of the library, and it wouldn't interfere with the upper part. It would be the lower triangle part. And I had spoken with Brock, who thought that it would be, it's not going to interfere with what he was talking about in terms of the permeable, it's not paving, but around that tree. So I'm looking at the lower the lower triangle there. And I had sent some photos to you folks, and it's we realized that it will get it'll have salt and ice, and it'll have wear and tear on it. And I've spoken with the mosaic artist, and he's done them in any number of places. And Mark Shippey had also said that it wouldn't interfere with sorry, it wouldn't interfere with their projects.
Yes, go ahead. I'm gonna go off camera. I'm gonna be listening audio, but you just won't see me.
The question for you, Lori, when
Yep.
we looked at the area the other day, one of the thoughts that I floated with you was whether or not the little triangle next to the steps where the trash can has been placed could be a site for mosaics, and if the trash can were to move across the street, that would seem to be out of the way of pedestrian footwear and tripping hazards or whatever that Linda is concerned about in the other location. Does that sound like an alternative possibility?
It would have been, but I think they've poured it already.
Oh,
I
I thought
think they've
I
poured.
thought your project was going to happen after the pour. It has to happen during the pour?
No, what has been suggested is that when the pour happens, there is like a little bit, like half an inch. The pour is put in half an inch lower than level with the form, with the mold. So it wouldn't happen during it. It would have a space, and it would happen afterwards. So we wouldn't be in folks' way or anything. So that's been done. I mean, poured.
So, Mike, is that kind of consistent in regards to pours and such?
Yes, that we went ahead, they poured that a couple weeks ago, a week and a half, actually 2 weeks, just before, I think they poured that just before the 4th of July weekend. So that's not an option anymore, because you got to leave an indent in the concrete, whatever size that Lori needs to fit this in. So that's not an option. The only way to do that now is to rip out the concrete and put a new panel in, which would be additional cost. I mean, the contractor's not going to do that at his cost.
Right. No, I wasn't suggesting that.
Laura, you were shaking your head. You have a different?
Oh, no, I was just shaking my head. Nope, let's not tear that out.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
All
right, I wasn't sure if you had a different, like consultation or like. All right. All that said and done, Rick, do you have any questions or thoughts regarding that?
Yeah, I would have some concern about the prudence of it for the wear and tear, ongoing maintenance, pouring a half-inch shy, creating a trip hazard, having to deal with that until sometime next year. I think you were proposing that it would take for them to produce the mosaic to put in. The mention of a potential warranty violation or exclusion caused by it being there. I think the town has been super supportive of mosaics on buildings around town. This is a good idea, but I don't think it's prudent for the town. I couldn't support it.
I have spoken with Mark, and you are correct, it wouldn't necessarily interfere with their ongoing projects, but he's very concerned about snow removal and shoveling of the sidewalk and grading continuing across the mosaics and chipping it up over the course of time, secondary to the snow sitting there and then having to have it removed. So as much as I think it's kind of a cool thought and project, given some of the technical components, I don't think necessarily the best fit for that particular location. Andrew, any other thoughts?
No.
So do we need a vote on this or by consensus? What do you think, Terry?
I think a vote, given that it's a request.
Well, I would make a
Okay.
motion, we not approve the request.
Was there a second?
Okay.
Motion's been made and second not to approve the request to put in a mosaic next to the library. Is there further discussion?
Can I just say something?
Sure.
Is that allowed? Just, I wanted to say the folks, everyone's been really good at working with me on all of this. Like Mike and all the guys on the crew and everything. Excuse me. Everyone's been really good and fielded that request. And I figure we'll just come up with another project in another place. It just seemed like such a perfect thing to have in that spot. So thanks for all of you for giving it time and thought.
I don't disagree with you, Lori, in regards to the coolness of the thought. You know, beckoning back to the streets of Rome and where they would, you know, do the mosaics and things of that nature. But I kind of have to, you know, I like the concept of putting something elsewhere. So any further discussion? Hearing none, call this matter to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Andrew?
Sorry. We're voting yes on the motion not to do the project, right?
Correct. To accept the motion as presented, yes.
But yes.
Rick?
Aye.
Myself as aye. So the motion does pass of not to allow the request, and we do thank the library for everything they've done. And
Definitely.
And it's a cool idea, just not the time at the moment. All right, thank you for coming in, and Linda and Mike staying late and Lori providing your insight. So
Bob?
that takes care. Yep.
I just have one question for Linda while she's here. Can you just say a little bit more about, you mentioned in passing that the next year's grant has been awarded. Can you just,
I
oh, I'm
mentioned
sorry.
that we hope to hear this month.
Oh, okay, I misheard
If
you.
they've
Thank
been
you.
awarded, yes.
Okay, so we'll talk about that at another meeting. Great.
All right, thank you. This moves us to back to old business under item F. Mike
Actually,
and
I think
Linda,
it goes, I believe it goes back to appointments, 6:20.
Oh, 6:20. Oh, my goodness. Thank you for catching that.
Yes, sir.
So we have a 6:20 appointment with Jeff Botner, with Energy Committee regarding an ARPA request. Welcome and let us know what you're looking for and what's going on.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for Andrew and Bob and Richard and Terry especially, because she's done a lot of running around on this whole project. This all came about because Eversource was proposing to change the LED lights in the town and offered to do that, and it would basically save the town about $5,000 a year in costs. And we started looking into some other towns and what they had done, and we realized that about 75% of the towns in Massachusetts have now actually pulled away from their both Eversource and National Grid, and have just taken on doing the street lights on their own because of the money savings on the costs over what Eversource is charging. So we looked into a number of different towns like Sunderland, Pepperell, Northampton, Pittsfield, even Nantucket, and it really varies how each town is treated by the different utilities. So we tried to get some real numbers behind what it would actually cost to convert to LEDs and do it in a slightly different way. One of the things we didn't like about Eversource's proposal was, besides the cost, was actually that we didn't have much control over the LED lights themselves. And so putting them up ourselves, we can actually control the lighting to the number of watts actually needed for each location. For example, like in Buckland, you'll see there's some lights that are running on 18 watts, Eversource was basically doing a blanket 30 watts for the whole town, and then more where big places were, but we couldn't go below that. So we approached a company, Real Term Energy, which is allowed to do bids on with towns without having to go out for bid, and they've been really supported by the U.S. Department of Energy, and have done a number of the towns. There's probably 50 or 60 towns in Massachusetts that they've now done, including Pepperell, which we really liked the way their lights were. And so we asked Pepperell to just kind of do a proposal on what the cost would be, and they came up with a way basically to save an additional $5,000 over what Eversource was doing, so that it would be, we'd be paying about $4,500 a year instead of $15,000 a year, which we're doing now. And Eversource's proposal was about $10,000. So we'd like to pursue this a lot deeper. And the next step really for us is to get a light by light assessment done by Real Term Energy. And basically that costs about $9,100 to have done, which is a chunk of change, but the savings over time is really tremendous. So if we can pull this project off, we could actually be saving about $10,000 a year on the budget over time. So it will cost us a bit because we have to buy the light poles. That's kind of a sticky issue that we're still battling a bit with. Eversource wants to charge us $15,000 to purchase the lights. Other towns like Pepperell got it for $1 a pole, which would have meant that it would actually cost us about $100. So we're actually trying to still do a little bit of negotiation on that end. I think there's still some play in how much the total project will cost, but even if we had to pay the $15,000 to Eversource, the total cost to do the whole project would be about $55,000, and that's including the $9,100. So what we're kind of asking, well, one more thing that along that line is that the other advantage of having the lights under total control, like what we're proposing, each light fixture would actually have shades on it so that it wouldn't throw a lot of light into the surrounding homes, which Eversource has started to do with a few of theirs, but they're only doing partial shields. They don't have a full shield for the light that they have. So the houses on the street side with the pole are ending up pretty bright, whereas the ones across the street are okay with the shield. So what we're proposing too is to have more of a full shield for each light, which would be compliant too with the Dark Skies Initiative, which is now the big proposal that's happening in both the House and the Senate in Massachusetts. It's probably going to be mandatory to do dark skies lighting in the future. If Eversource does these lights now, we probably won't see the dark skies lighting for another 20 years because they're only mandated to change them once they actually do the changeover of bulbs. So what we'd like to do is anticipate that the dark skies might actually pass and try and be compliant with it up front. So anyway, that's a long way around, but basically what we're proposing is the lights that we would have individual controls so that we could actually control from the ground each individual light, and that could be given to something like the police department, the fire department. If they're fighting a fire in an area, they can bring up the lights in that neighborhood. If a little kid gets lost in the neighborhood, the police can bring up the lights if they want to. For us, we can control it on the other end and darken, especially like between midnight and 5 a.m. And so we think we can actually save even more money than what's in our initial proposal, because we may be able to control the lights down to a much lower rate. So we'd like to get the actual costs on all of that, and the way to do that is through the $9,000 proposal. And we were wondering if that would be possible to get that through any ARPA money that might be left in order to push this forward. So what I'm actually proposing is to try and tap into the ARPA funds if there is any money in there, and I'm not even positive that there is at this point. So that's turning it back to you, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. First question, Terry, what is the status of our ARPA funding?
We have, hold on one second, approximately 29,000 remaining. There are a couple of unknowns. One is the elevator repair, whether that will come in on target. And also the generator, the board earmarked a specific amount. It had to be bid a second time. I'm hoping prices still come in within the range that the emergency management director had proposed. And then Andrew had talked about earmarking $10,000 as a match to the grant he most recently applied for.
So we're kind of running tight. That's what I'm hearing. Rick, do you have questions?
Yes, I have concerns for sure.
Yep. Questions, concerns, thoughts?
Yep.
All in one.
One of the things was, you know, and I got to tell you, I appreciate the work that went in all this for sure. And you actually in person coming and presenting it to me a month or so ago. And it's a heck of a lot of work. A lot of it makes a heck of a lot of sense. I would definitely not be in favor of using the ARPA money for funding this. That money American Recovery Act should benefit the entire town, not a small sliver of it with 99 lights. So I would not be in favor of that in particular. One of my biggest concerns about the proposal is page 14, assumptions, to the calculations from the RF. I'll butcher the initials. I forget the company, the vendor that you sought out.
All right, yeah, yep. Real term
There
energy.
There are numerous there that are just a nightmare to see. That the quote of the initial cost of this, which if I'm not mistaken, you're projecting 10 years before we break even and start the reduction. The door is so wide open for that figure of 55,000, was it roughly?
Well,
to go drastically up is mind-boggling. And there's no reason to read them all, but you've presented this to the board. I assume we've all looked at it. And so that gives me a lot of concern. I don't think we have real numbers. And one thing that really bothers me is that this is again, 99 streetlights. If anything, it probably should go before town meeting to see if this is something the entire town can stand behind and put money into. Not having proposals or requests for proposals concerns me. And also, when we got your letter of overview, the 6 points that you made, I was surprised there wasn't anything there from the finance committee. So several weeks ago, I sent it to them. They brought it to a meeting and responded that they could not support this and would recommend we stay with our previous Eversource. I say our, I wasn't a part of the board when that vote was made. That the town stay with their previous Eversource agreement vote that was previously taken. I think that's it in a nutshell.
I'd just like to address that because it's hard for me to believe that they would not see the financial savings in it, because even if we had to take out a loan or something to do this, there are 0 interest loans that we could do this on, and it wouldn't take 10 years. It would probably be more like 5 or 6 years that would pay off, because we're basically saving $10,000 a year over what we're paying now on the budget. And the total project would be what, $55,000 roughly, and 9,000 of that is coming off of it up front. So it would really be the 46,000 that would have to be paid back over the first 4 years. But after that time, they're basically each 10 years after that, you'd be saving $100,000 to the town.
They don't have life expectancy, right?
Oh, sure they do. They have these lights have life
Well, you just
expectancy of about 25 to 30 years for LEDs. And that's the other big thing, is that Eversource is basically charging us a slightly higher fee for, well, I guess it's about even for doing the LEDs versus sodium vapor lights, but the sodium vapor lights were only good for about 12 years. The new lights are good for about 25. What Pepperell has learned is that they can actually put in higher wattage LEDs and then run them even longer because they run them at about half the power. And then as the light fades, they can up each individual bulb more wattage, and so they can increase the wattage to pick up the bulb. So actually you can make the bulbs last quite a long time. So that's part of the thing, that what Eversource is charging us is roughly $150 a pole. This new company, Real Term Energy, has already been doing a number of sites for many, many years. Sunderland is another one that they're doing. And when they do it, they're charging about $25 a pole as opposed to Eversource's $150. So it's a huge savings to the town to have this company, and the company is already working in Western Mass, so they'll respond to it quickly. They'll that's why we wanted to go with this particular company. They've already done so many towns across the state that they have a really good track record. And when we've talked to the people as to what they like about the lights, they absolutely love them in Pepperell. It's been a win-win.
I agree completely. There's plenty of benefits to a controllable light. That's indisputable.
And Eversource will not offer us that at all. They're giving us straight out what you see is the LEDs
Right.
that are there.
Right.
And you talk about it being the whole town. Actually, a lot of the lights that are the expensive lights are actually the ones in the rural sections along Route 2. So it is the entire community that's paying for the lights. It's not just in town. And there may be lights. The other thing that Real Term has done with other towns is found that in some cases, a lot of the light poles are not even necessary. Eversource put lights on them, but they don't actually serve any real function because they're so close to another pole. So we would, by doing this light by light estimate, we would actually be able to anticipate that and maybe cut out some of the poles that we wouldn't have to use.
I still find it ludicrous that you got to pay a company $9,000 to give you
15 grand. 15 grand to own the poles. To basically take away.
No, we're talking about the study at this point.
I see the 9 terms. To give them $9,000 to do an estimate.
Well, it's because they're going
to do this. Just one sec. Okay. If we did give them the $9,000, you're down the rabbit hole. You picked your vendor without any input from the entire town.
Right. And so that's why we wouldn't do this until we had seen, and that's why we asked them. They've done already a lot of the footwork on the pre-proposals and estimating what their actual costs would be. This would allow us to actually know the exact numbers of what we're actually getting into, and they want to do that pole by pole. So it takes quite a bit of time to go look at each individual pole, decide whether they need a shield on both sides of that light, or so each pole has to be estimated on its own. So it's really not that expensive given that. And Eversource is charging us $15,000 just to buy the poles. To me, that's the ludicrous part. It's like they don't want to get out for them to do less work over time, to go from sodium vapor to less work LEDs, and then on top of that be charging us. And so that we're trying to get out of, and that might actually cut the cost because other towns have gotten $1 a pole.
I'll say one more thing and then I'll leave it be.
Sure.
The current Eversource offer of 30 watts everywhere is the lowest watt they can currently provide us. There hasn't been a complaint since June 1st, to the best of my knowledge, since they've been all converted, the ones that are in town, to 30 on June 1st. The potential is there for down the road them to offer other versions than the current ones they have available to offer. And this just seems like a really ramrod rush to to go through and spend money that the town just doesn't need to when we already have an offer voted for by the previous full Board of Selectmen to proceed with an offer that is legitimately free, that will save the town money. We're already going to be over budget with this year's estimate of street light because we had level funded it, thinking the LEDs would already be in place. And that's been delayed to give you guys fair time to come up with a proposal. And I'm not saying the proposal's bad. I'm saying it's rushed. Let's look at maybe at least one or two other sources if it doesn't require a request for proposal going out to bid, and put it in front of the town meeting. So you're looking at a couple years off. So I'm done.
That's too bad, because I think you're missing a big picture of it. And
Well, no, I don't think he is fully missing the big picture, because I'm kind of on the same page. Andrew, and I'd like also to call on John Walsh. So Andrew?
Well, I guess I could spend some time on this, Bob, but if you're on the same page with Rick, I'm not sure if I need to spend my breath on this.
Okay, John, would you like to chime in?
I'm happy to make some corrections to what I heard.
This is your fair chance, yes.
One point that you made there, Rick, is that you felt like this was rushed and that we should take another few years to look at it and put it out to bid. The other point you made was that by delaying the previous decision, we're
You're frozen.
I think you're
frozen, Andrew. Uh-oh, we lost Andrew.
do it.
All right. Well, Andrew is kind of frozen in
coming back.
time. John.
Well, sure. My thought pattern is slightly in a different vein. I'm not sure you actually all have been given the proposal from the Energy Committee that was due by August 1st, which is showing the financials and showing the recommendations. And so from my perspective, just seems a little bit like the cart before the horse, since it's up to, you've already have a vote to forward this. And my understanding was that August 1st, you're going to revisit this and decide whether or not to go down this avenue. So to spend $9,000 now, to me, seems premature. It's not that I agree or disagree. I mean, from my perspective, Terry does have a listing of all the poles and lamps in town. For $9,000 to go around and measure light meter values, when basically the old bulbs are basically all underperforming since they're at near or close to end of life. The idea is that they would come back and maybe come up with a different lower wattage for those. But I think from Jeff's point, the light controls are going to be more critical to saving the town energy as it is to putting in a 17 or 18 watt versus a 30 watt. So I find that a little bit premature from that perspective. So for me, it's a process issue. You haven't voted yet as to whether or not to even go down this road. And I think Rich is right that it's going to have to come back to town meeting because it is a major expenditure that will have to be supported for 25 years. I did help them look at some of their savings numbers. They seem reasonable. They seem to be, Jeff's point about what we're paying right now is on target. But again, this feels like, to me, like we got the cart before the horse, because you have not, as a board, decided the ultimate question as to whether or not you're going to go down this road. And that's all.
So Andrew, you're unfrozen. Hopefully you thawed out. Didn't get
Sorry, my
hypothermia.
internet connection has been unstable. So I hope I'll be audible here. One question I have about going to town meeting is that my understanding is that all of the funding sources being proposed for this alternative pathway are grant funding sources, not
Correct.
town tax dollars. So we have applied for numerous grants without going to town meeting. I'm just curious why there's a sudden push to go to town meeting to spend grant money.
I'll answer that if you'd like. Because it's not a purchase, it's a lease, and a lease is forever. And it is a lease to purchase over 10 some odd years. And then you've got 10-year-old fixtures. You're under a lease. At some point, you're going to need to replace them. You're going to need to pay this lease and maintenance for the foreseeable 20, 30, a couple decades. Are you kidding me? Let's just take a reasonable approach to getting somewhere to improve our energy efficiency with an offer that doesn't commit the town to be on the hook to pay this company for an unforeseeable future. I mean, literally a decade, 2 decades more.
We can actually do a grant. We can actually do the lease with this company for any number of years. Like if we wanted to do it for 3 years and try them out, we can also go, we can then put it out for bid to other companies to take over that maintenance if we want. It's just that we've found that they're probably the cheapest out there that we can come across. So that's one of the reasons. And we have approached the Green Communities program, and they have funded LED light transitions in the past. And so that is a possibility that we could go through them to fund this, and that would, but we just thought that if we had the ARPA money, it would allow us to move a lot quicker. And that was the reason for approaching that. But we could also try and do the whole thing through the Green Communities. I think if we let Eversource put on the bulbs, it's going to be much harder to change over. It's going to be much more expensive because they're going to have all those lights. We'll probably have to buy those lights off of them, and it's going to increase the cost over time to doing it. The time to do it now is now when they're wanting to replace these sodium vapors with other lights. And you mentioned that there haven't been complaints. Actually, there's a ton of complaints on the blocks. If you go and talk to the neighborhoods where these lights are, people do not like the lights that Eversource put up. They're extremely bright. When you approach them at night, they glare into your face. They have no covers over them, and Eversource doesn't want to put covers on them. They don't have a cover for that particular light, so they're not adjustable over time. They've made a makeshift light there's one on Masonic Street where they put a makeshift cover on it, which works pretty well in that one situation, but it's just not really acceptable to what we see as what's needed for the town.
Terry, didn't you tell us that there was an actual, I understand we have a makeshift shield on one, and that's fine, but Terry, am I remembering incorrectly that I thought there was in fact a legitimate shield that is already on order for Eversource?
The shields that Eversource intend to put on the lights are on back order, and it's a half shield. I think it's called a no trespass shield, so that it goes on a portion of the light and moves it away from the home if in fact that's the right application at that location.
That's what's on Masonic. I think they may have gotten the actual light because they put one up on Masonic and it doesn't look quite so half-assed made as the other one that they did, but it is only a half shield. So if there were a house on the other side on the Masonic one, there's just trees behind it, so it doesn't really impact anybody. But the trees are in full light up, and so if there were a house there, it would be incredibly annoying. It would be right in your second floor window if you have a second floor window, and really not acceptable. And that's why we were really hoping we can meet both. With the lights that Real Term Energy is providing, we would have control over how many lumens we could put up. Also the lights that Eversource is using are 3,000 lumens. We'd like to be in the range of more like 2,300 lumens because it's a much easier light on people. So that would be one huge savings of doing it ourselves, and the other one is to have that control to put it at whatever wattage people needed, and we could adjust that. Eversource cannot do any adjustments on their lights. Once they're up, you got it. You got to live with it. So it's
Jeff, could I ask a couple questions?
sure.
I know that Real Term Energy, you've said, has got a great track record, worked with a lot of communities. I know that the town of Buckland used a different
It's a different one.
consultant. How do you get around the bidding of that?
It's because they're part of a let me find what the wording is.
Like a preferred
Yeah,
provider?
they're a preferred provider by the U.S. Department of Energy. Qualified Energy Service Company is what they're called, and that allows them to work with communities without having to go direct for bid, and
Okay.
that's why they're the ones who, I mean, they have a huge list: Brockton, Pittsfield, Haverhill, Agawam, Tewksbury, Holden, West Springfield, Longmeadow, Auburn, Athol, Norton, Rockton, Rumford, Lawrence, Lee, Tingsboro, Pepperell, Hadley, Williamsburg,
Yeah,
Sunderland.
you don't have to read all of them, but
and on
we
and
get the
on.
cut.
So
Yeah.
they've done a lot of communities. So they have a track record, and they're doing ones out this way. So it also means that it's fairly inexpensive for them to add us on. So we don't
And
have
my
to be big cities.
My other question is if I understand you correctly, you think that the cost for the conversion would be about 55,000 and the 9,100 would be absorbed in that? It would include
Yes,
the
that's in.
55 would include the buyout, the assessment, and the new bulbs and
Yep.
shields?
Correct.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
so that's the total cost. So really, once the 9,100 was put up, we're looking at like 46,000 left to try and come up with, and we think we can get that through the green communities once we can actually apply for green communities money again, and that will hinge on Cal Gym and other things, I guess. So
And if you can't, the town's holding the
well, no,
bag.
we can. It's just we can't apply until Cal Gym is finished, and because we're not allowed to apply for more funding. But we've been told that we would have a very high, we have a really strong proposal, and that it would have a really good shot of getting passed. So
I have another question for you, Jeff.
sure.
Sorry, my internet is going in and out. If John Wolf, who I think is still on the call, had mentioned that the auditing work, the $9,100, is something that could potentially be done by us. Is that the case, John?
I don't think so.
Yes, sorry. Basically, it's counting poles and fixtures and doing a light meter at night. So the inventory is already there. It's going out and confirming that the numbers of fixtures meet the number of poles and using a light meter to determine what the existing lumens are.
I'm just
Well,
wondering
also
if
looking at shields. So
one potential strategy here, since the board or my colleagues on the board seem to have some doubts about the Green Communities grant and spending ARPA money and things like that. I should point out that we did spend quite a lot of ARPA money, I think over $100,000 on the sewer project, which benefits only the Shelburne residents who have sewer connections. So we just spent what, $750,000 on Bridge Street, which is a very small portion of town. So I don't think there's a real argument there in terms of spending grant money in different projects in different parts of town. It's really a matter of deciding whether this is in the interest of the town. Not every grant has to serve every single resident of the town in order to be a worthy project. So I just want to make that point for the record. But you know, in terms of how to
froze again. Yeah, nuts. We can
No,
have.
I don't disagree with you, Andrew, in regards to benefit, you know, in terms of like Bridge Street and the communities. But my primary concern right at the moment is the tightness that we have on the ARPA funds, given some of the unknowns that we still have pending. And that there are a lot of other components out there that I've been kind of wanting to wait to hear. We have, the full results of the report for August 1st. I'm not saying that the concepts are not valid in regards to the dimming of lights and reduction of energy costs that way. And so I'm not saying it's not a valid presentation and thought, just the, I know I might be thinking short-sighted versus long-sighted, but right at the moment dealing with a $9,000 request, which would put the ARPA funds at $20,000, where we have a couple of big unknowns, is my concern at the very moment. So that said,
well, if we could fundraise the 9,100, say, so that we could then go to green communities with the rest of the money, would you still consider letting us proceed? Put it that way, because we need that proposal in a sense to understand better the costs. And if we had to raise that somehow ourselves, we could probably try and do that, but we'd still need to know that you were willing to let us go forward beyond that.
Jeff, I'm not sure a town committee can fundraise that. We'd have to check with either our auditors or the accounting. I think only nonprofit can fundraise.
Yeah, like 501c3s and such of that nature.
Yeah.
Will the Energy Committee be able to submit the final proposal for July 31st meeting? So the Finance Committee to consider and look it over as well? So, is that still?
I was told this was the final.
No, our final is really once we had more of this detail. It was what we were hoping to do for the final, but this is just, trying to get us there. So it's
what more detail? You can't get more detail without $9,000 and them doing a study, right?
Right. So we're kind of stuck as to telling you what the total cost would be if we
Right.
don't know what the total cost would be. so then we give you these numbers like $55,000, but we don't want to hold our feet to the fire because we don't know for sure. If we have this proposal, it will be street light by street light, and it'll tell exactly which ones need shielding, which ones need extra light for intersections. It will tell us all that kind of detail, and we just don't have that. We have a list of all the street lights, and we know what lights Eversource has on each of those, but that's all we have.
Well, I think you've heard your answer.
Okay. Yeah.
I would make a motion that we not approve the use of $9,100 of ARPA funds for this study, and I would also add that we proceed and advise Eversource to move forward with the previous selectmen vote and get our lights changed over and start saving some energy and some money.
I think that's a big mistake because we're losing a lot of money down the road. A lot of money.
Is there a second? I will second it for the purpose of discussion. Trying to figure out best way to. It's not that your point is not taken, Jeff, but we're kind of in a rock and a hard place at this very moment. The bird in the hand is better than two in the bush, per se, where we have a known entity. I guess is kind of where I'm kind of looking at it. That doesn't mean it might not be able to be revisited, but I'm at this point, like seconded for the purposes of discussion. Is there any further discussion?
I just think we should be really careful about telling Eversource. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Andrew. Sorry.
Andrew,
revisiting this project down the road would mean purchasing new 30-watt LEDs from Eversource.
Correct.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call this matter to the vote. All those in favor of the motion as presented by Rick, please signify by saying aye. Rick?
Aye.
Andrew?
No.
I'm going to go with a vote of aye. The motion passes as a 2-1. Thank you, Jeff, for what you've done and your insight. And it's not that the Energy Committee is not appreciated. It's just at this moment we're kind of in a hard situation.
Yeah, I understand.
Thank you.
Lori?
Can I just ask a question about what was exactly just passed? Is it to not use the 9,000, or is it to go forward with the Eversource proposal?
It was both.
It was both.
Okay, so basically, so the town, so you're saying that you want the town to go forward with accepting the Eversource bid. Is that correct?
We've already accepted it. We're just reconfirming that earlier vote by the previous board, which was Andrew, myself, and Margaret.
Okay, all right, and I just have one more comment, is that there were so many people who were trying to make it work that that we could have more dark skies, go with the other options. And I thought that the Energy Committee and these folks put a lot of good, solid work into it. And I was hoping that I don't do this usually. I was hoping that work would be seen as a valid statement of what people wanted. So I'm sorry, I do have to say that's disappointing.
Okay, so noted. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
All right.
Excuse me, Bob.
Yep, John?
Could I please make a point of order? I think the motion you just passed is not valid. You are taking a measure from the $9,000 request and adding an addendum without it being, I think, appropriate. I'm not, and I personally am not advocating that we go back to what the original quote was, or the original proposal. But I think you really need to wait until the committee has come up with at least the information that you told them to come back with on August 1st, which has not been provided yet. Even though it's not complete, they can still make their case about what the finances, plus or minus. We're talking about percentages that are not going to basically impact the proposal very significantly. So I feel like you're out of order in the second motion that Rich made. And that's my last thing to say.
I gotta ponder that for a second. Rick, what's your thoughts on that?
You know, I don't have any problem in splitting it. I think that the misstatement there was that you think they didn't give us this report in completion, and they did. There's nowhere that says we asked them to do it by August 1st at the latest, and earlier if you could. They managed to pull it together and put it up earlier than they did. We've had it for weeks, actually a month or more. So, you know, that's not really a correct statement. But I wouldn't mind splitting it into two separate votes or two separate motions, unless, if you think that's appropriate, Bob.
Oh, and my apologies then, because I was not aware that any report was forwarded to the building, to the
It
select
wasn't
board.
a full report at all. We had not done that. That was intended for later. So, but we just tried to give you as many numbers as we had at the moment.
You didn't say that in anything you sent to us. You gave us a report that's
Well,
15 pages long, a lot of detail,
My understanding was that this report that Jeff presented was designed to request $9,100 for an
Exactly.
audit so that they could
Correct.
produce a final report.
correct.
Well, it doesn't change the $9,000 question either. So,
No, but it does stick the town with lights that I think a lot of people are going to be really upset with, and I think they should have a chance to weigh in on it. Terry probably knows some of that. If Terry
that's why I
could weigh in.
go to town meeting. That's why I think it should go to town meeting, because there's so many people that the lights have limited impact on.
Sure.
I'm not saying we should punish, but you're asking the many to fund the few. In this
That's what
case,
we do in society.
Yeah. I'm good with the vote, or I'm good with whatever the chairman decides.
Cynthia?
You're muted, Cynthia.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to support what John said. This meeting tonight was only to ask for the ARPA funds. It wasn't to make a final decision on whether to take the Eversource option. And the Energy Committee has until August 1st. There might be other things that could come up in the meantime. As Lori and others have said, there are many people who are going to be very disappointed that this decision has been made tonight without anybody being aware that that decision would be up for discussion. And it just doesn't seem fair at all. So I'm hoping that you can split those two decisions. If you feel strongly that the ARPA funds are not appropriate, that you could at least make that decision and still give the option of pursuing this in some way.
Terry's got a hand up there, Bob.
Yeah, dealing with some stuff here at the hospital back and forth on treatments that are going on with me as we speak. So I'm juggling about a half a dozen different things. Terry, you were going to say something?
I just wondered if the Energy Committee were to apply for green community funding, could they apply for what's needed for the study? Although, so you do the study, you apply for the whole package, the study and the lights. I just don't know how that would play out, but if there's no other way to get the 9,100, could it be included in the application? I know that Buckland's cost was so much higher than what you're proposing.
I think that's certainly one option. I mean, another option would be to let it ride for a while and see how the various other draws on demands on the remaining ARPA funding play out. And if, they're not drawn upon, we might have $9,100 there that we could also use. I mean, a third option would be to do the auditing ourselves and use that as a basis for the Green Communities application. So I think there's a number of different ways we could continue to proceed, but I think the ultimate question is really whether or not the select board and the voters of the town want to continue to consider an option other than the one that Eversource is offering. And if the board wants to bring that to town meeting, that would be a way to go.
So going back to a statement that was made earlier, basically without the funding, it pretty much brings from my recollection, brings the report process to an end, and what you see is what you get, and you won't be able to proceed any further, which then kind of reconfirms the vote, or the fact that Eversource is the way that, only becomes available. And, this is a hot topic, and I don't disagree with anyone that there is people who are weighing in, but I also know of members in the rural community that have spoken to me directly that said, this is, why are we paying for something that, benefits the village? So hi, Cynthia. Hi, you can wave. I'm
Sorry. I just
um,
wanted to say
just,
that
you can
this
wave.
does-
I acknowledge.
Okay, thank you. It was just to the point you're making right now that
Yeah.
I think, I just wanted to say that this proposal is could be beneficial to all the townspeople because all the townspeople will be paying into the electricity bill, right? So if we're all paying for the Eversource option versus all paying for the real-term energy option, what the rural residents don't realize is that it will be a savings to them. And it's not just a bunch of people in town that are going to benefit. But what would be really nice is if the people in town could have something they can live with and that everybody could benefit financially. That's all. I'm done. Thank you.
Rick has a point regarding town meeting. We are missing several other people to weigh in. Finance committee.
Finance committee did weigh in. The finance committee did weigh in, Bob.
But we never got a chance to talk to the finance committee directly.
You should have put it in front of them, not me.
We were intending to. Tom is out of the country right now, so we have not had a time to be able to do that. So we're all under other pressures too. So we just have not been able to do that. But we would like to meet with them, and we still should have enough time to do that if we go for the August.
So Rick, would you be willing to reconsider the August 1st deadline and leave the 9,000 vote intact, and then reconsider the vote again for August 1st or whatever the next meeting would be? It'd be August 14th would be the next meeting in August.
I think we didn't agree, or I watched that meeting and I wasn't on the board when you took that vote to table until August 1st, unless it can be done sooner. We hope it can be done sooner. Those words were spoken. And then this was presented to us with no explanation that it wasn't just a week early of the August 1st deadline to come to us. So, I think that's just a maneuver myself, but I still think what we're saying is we don't have $9,100 to give to this prudently without it going before town meeting first. That's a year away. Then there's the study, if the town approved it, the $9,000 study, and then there's the implementation. So the Energy Committee wants us to spend more money for 2 more years when we can get the Eversource done as soon as possible, start saving the money, and deal with this through grants and other sources if you can, but in the right way, through town meeting approval, and then everybody's happy. So I'm still comfortable with pursuing or letting Eversource move forward and stop jerking them around and get the LEDs changed over, start saving the money, and bring us back into compliance budget-wise, which we know we're going to be over already now by delaying it as 2 years from now before the others would kick in.
Excuse me, Bob.
Yeah.
John Walsh again. I just want to make this point of order. I really believe you are um, violating open meeting laws by voting on something that was not on your agenda. You have and I agree, the ARPA money is fine if you want to shut that down tonight, but there's nothing on this agenda that says you're going to take a vote on this of going along with the Eversource thing. Not that it may not happen at the next meeting after the proposal has been discussed, but I do not believe there's been any proposal, any discussed in any open meeting of the select board. And I think you need to reconsider that vote from that perspective. Thank you.
Just a quick correction, John. Streetlights have been on our agenda for over a year. It's on old business, every single agenda.
I'm sorry, but I thought there was, based on the discussion, to postpone any further discussion until the August 1st deadline.
That was not,
That a meeting would, that a meeting would be held to discuss it in open dialogue.
I don't ever recall any terms of like public hearing component. It would be a select board discussion and not, I mean, obviously input from the energy committee. I don't recall in terms of the.
I agree, Bob. I'm not disagreeing with that at all.
Yeah.
But again, you have nothing on this agenda tonight to make the final decision. That's my point.
Actually, on the agenda, it says an old business streetlights tabled until August 1st is what it says on the agenda I have. It actually says those words, tabled until August 1st.
No, you're not wrong, Cynthia. I mean, that's so the next meeting is July 31st, and then the August 1st is obviously the next day. So we wouldn't actually be able to act on it until August 14th on any of the information. And that's the night of special town meeting as well. And I don't necessarily disagree that this should go before town meeting, but I don't believe it should go before a special. I believe it should go before an annual town meeting rather than a special. My mind keeps coming back to, I guess I have to go back to, in good faith, of the August 1st deadline, that we should reconsider that portion of it, but I'm not going to reconsider the $9,000. And every time I've been running it through my head and running the loops of possibilities. But I'm also going to want to put it out there that I'm not going to let when that report is presented, I'm not going to let it turn into a free-for-all of 30 people giving their opinions. I'm going to put that right out there now. That's not going to happen because it's not a public hearing. It is to hear the report rather than to take input as a public hearing. Because that's just going to go, it's going to run amok, and I'm not going to allow that. So I'll consider and I'll entertain in regard to the August 1st deadline for the presentation of a report from the Energy Committee, but I think we have the vote for the 9,000 that I'm going to hold true to. So Rick, that's
Bob. I would just move that we, in following your instruction there, I just move that we amend the previous motion to have it be revoted on the first part.
On the August 1st part?
No, on the 9100 only.
So go again on what you're asking for then, Andrew.
Just to amend the vote you just took to say let's redo it and vote only on the $9,100.
We already
I
voted on.
think that's what you were aiming for, wasn't it?
Yeah, go, Rick, go ahead. I'll second it, because Andrew moved it. I'll second it for discussion. Go ahead, Rick.
Bob said he thought we should leave the $9,100 request voted.
Yeah.
It's strike the portion that we
To
should
strike the.
Let me then restate that and just say
Okay.
to do it the other way, to leave the
To strike
9100 in place and strike the second part of the vote.
Okay, that's I think where it should stand.
I'm good with.
Okay, Rick's okay with that. So we have a motion made and seconded. Discussion. Does the Energy Committee fully understand my point that when that is presented, this is not going to be stacked, the meeting with 30, 40 people from the community thinking they're going to have the opportunity to speak with this? Because that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I understand that, but
okay,
they
I
may
just
write
want to make sure
letters.
that's
I can't stop them from writing letters. So.
Letters are fine, but I just want to make sure that it is aware that this is not it's to hear the report from you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd like to meet with the financial committee too and discuss
If
it.
you can do,
I really
if
think
you can do it between now and August 1st.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Is there further discussion?
No.
All right. Motion has been made to strike the second portion of the previous motion for funding of the ARPA out of ARPA funds for a study, and then to reconfirm the vote taken earlier and we'll hold off until the Energy Committee places the a report in front of us. Hearing no other discussion, call this matter to vote. Andrew?
Aye.
Rick? Okay, if you abstain, that's fine. Or is Rick now frozen?
I think so.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that cold here in July. Between Andrew and Rick, the cold front must be moving from Shelburne to Pennsylvania. I will vote aye. And we lost Rick. So he must have realized he was frozen and is going to try to relog in. So we'll finish the vote once we hear back from Rick. Terry, do you know if he's attempting to log in again?
Soon as I see him pop up, I'll let him in.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna try to call him.
Okay.
I'll state for the record while we're waiting that I'm an unhappy Comcast subscriber.
I'm using the Wi-Fi at the hospital, so I don't know what who their provider is.
My internet connection has been getting more and more unstable, and I'm not sure why.
This is my connection presently. IV fluid through my port, so.
John is trying to reconnect even by phone. I mean,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Rick.
Rick, okay.
There he is.
Hi again.
Well, I'm on my phone. I don't know why my iPad shut down, but in any event.
So we were waiting for your vote on Andrew's revision.
Okay, the vote was to keep the denial
First-
of the
Correct. And
dollars and delete the portion of resuming Eversource proposal.
until the August 1st report from the Energy Committee, so we can have have the opportunity to
All right.
hear that.
If it's up to me and the vote is in process, sorry I cut out.
That's all right.
Then I agree.
Okay, so the motion is now unanimous on that portion. All right. Anything else for that topic, or can we now move forward? Thank you, Jeff and Cynthia and John, for all your input in regards to this and making your case. It was putting my mind into a lot of loops of running through motions and Robert's Rules of Orders and things of that nature, and kind of having to dust off a few cobwebs. All right, so thank you for coming in. We look forward to your report, and we'll go from there. All right. So now we jump back to old business item F, newsletter guidelines. Rick.
Okay, well, at our previous meeting, we reviewed them. The only question we got was what was behind this, and the question is that this is a town asset, a town entity, and in my opinion, the select board would be remiss if my phone fell. I hope I'm still on.
Yep, you are.
I felt that the town would be remiss if we didn't put in some basic elementary operational guidelines to avoid the misuse of a town entity. So I proposed
Rick,
those.
can I just offer an order of operation suggestion? Is that
Sure.
maybe if we discuss the new business item D, which was Tricia Yacobone's resignation as editor, and if we get through that item, we might have more clarity as to whether it makes sense to spend a lot of time on these items, whether or not they're actual or theoretical.
Tell me what item concerns you. There's 8 of them there. You've had a month to study it.
Accepting resignation.
Pardon me?
So
in item D, we're accepting the resignation of Tricia Jacobone Biaggi as editor of the newsletter. So
I don't think we have to.
The question that follows from that is, do we have another editor? And if not, why spend a lot of time on these, rules and regulations if they're purely hypothetical?
Well, they're not hypothetical, and I think it would help someone decide that, yeah, they want to come in and be an editor to continue a very valuable communication tool that is a town entity to communicate with the voters. Why wouldn't they want to know boundaries, basic elementary procedures?
Practically speaking, do you have a nominee in mind to edit this newsletter?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So at this point, the rules and regs are hypothetical.
They would help a potential candidate to say, okay, this is how
that's fine.
It should be run.
Just wanted to offer that as a framework for what we're working with here.
I don't think the rules and regulations are a hypothetical component. I mean, it's something that's proposed, and it triggered a series of events that had Tricia walked away from the newsletter. So so they are related, but I don't also see them related. Because if we create the guidelines, you know, and I understand the importance of defining, you know, as a town entity, what should be discussed and presentation order, regardless if we have an editor in mind, or may the news will have to maybe go dormant for a little bit before we can find somebody that's willing to come back on. It's been a huge success, and I can't deny that. But to Rick's point of these are the rules we're playing by, so though related, I don't see them fully related. Andrew, does that make sense? Andrew's now frozen again.
Yeah, I think we can acknowledge her resignation in this line item that got onto the agenda, but she was never appointed by us. She was appointed by Andrew.
Sorry, my computer is running low. That's why I walked away. So, yeah. Terry, was she fully appointed, or was it just an Andrew saying she's willing to do this? That's great.
She volunteered to take over the editor when at the time we had no one, so.
Yeah.
We lost Andrew.
Yep.
When he comes back, I hope he could point out one that he thinks is a detriment to us having a good, strong communication tool that accurately and without agenda delivers information to the town. Which one of these would impede that? I don't get it.
Yeah, and then I don't, like I said, I don't disagree with you, Rick, in regards to that. That's why I said they're sort of related, but not.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's coming back.
I don't know. Have you
I'll
reached
try-
out to him, or?
I'll try.
Yeah.
He's gonna try to call in.
Okay. Mm. Are you there, Andrew?
I'm here, yeah.
Okay.
You're just gonna have to shout out when you want to recognize me because I can't see you.
Okay. So we left it at the relevancy of how the not, the harm or relevancy of, reviewing the guidelines versus how that interacts with item D with Tricia's resignation. So Andrew, are you implying that if we disregard the guidelines, she would then step back into the role?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying if we approve the guidelines, they're just going to sit there because we don't currently have an editor. But if you want to proceed on that basis, go right ahead.
So again, I come back down to
it's fine. I'm happy to go forward if you want to do that.
all right. So Rick presented guidelines basically outlining the format, content, and review process of the editing of the newsletter, regardless of whether we have a editor in place or not. I don't think it's wrong to not at least review it and either accept it or make corrections so we can have a document that we can keep working with. So Rick, so you're thinking in regards to presenting the guidelines was to create a more formal response or a formal approach to it, and laid out how many points was it? Because I don't have it in front of me at this point.
There's 8 points, and there's very limited mention to content. It's about how it's done. Again, it would be unnecessary to have a document that would say, I, as a selectman, couldn't go to the town yard and borrow a dump truck to get myself a load of gravel, right? And this is a whole new thing. This is a whole new entity, a whole new asset to the town, which does have political mouthpiece potential and has been used in that vein. And I want to see it simply cut back to a cut and dry, straightforward, no opinions, no agenda approach. And again, protect this town asset by ensuring that the people who signed up for receiving the newsletter, that their emails are in a secure place. We put on the tax bills this year.
So I'm kind of in a little awkward position right at the moment.
Yes.
My room just became available here at the hospital, and transportation is here to move me upstairs.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to log off for a bit because I have to go through this process of getting settled, because they're not going to hey, you can occupy a room.
Do you want to forward the meeting to a different day, or?
What I see that's left outside of this is a pretty straight cut and forward components.
I don't think so.
Huh?
I don't think so. I think item A is a significant one, and item C under new business. I think those are both things that we need to address and flesh out. So
we
Okay.
can table the things that appear to be a conflict and try to take care of the things that we can this evening without Bob. I mean, I feel bad that we're holding you up, Bob, when your health should be of importance.
So do
Yeah.
I.
So I mean, if that's agreeable for tabling those items, so I can then attend to getting admitted and getting further medications and things of that nature.
That's fine with me.
Okay, so I'm gonna sign off at this point, and Andrew, I believe you're vice chair, if you could want to continue running the meeting, or and with the help of Terry in regards to recognizing people as they come forward, that would be great. And I thank everyone for their understanding and all their information that was presented this evening. So
All right,
please.
thank you, Bob. And we
Yep.
we will not address the ones that require more significant discussion. We'll wait till you're with us.
Okay, thank you.
Take care,
Yeah.
Bob.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Be well.
So, where are we now? What are we gonna, what's left on the agenda for us to consider?
Andrew, I would suggest that we skip over old business F, newsletter guidelines, that we skip
Yeah.
over A and C of new business. And honestly,
Okay.
item B is the Community Preservation Act Committee, and until we have at least a quorum to appoint, I don't think we can take action on that one either.
Yeah, it's
All
not
right,
even,
let's leave that. Yeah.
it's
So the
not
next-
a light,
So what?
right?
The next one would be to accept Tricia's resignation as editor.
Okay. Do we need a motion to that effect?
I don't think we do, because in my opinion, she wasn't appointed by the town. There was no vote to appoint her. This was a transition period, Andrew, when you went from taking this on. And I gotta say, I love the thing. I'm not against it at all. You were trying to step away from it. It's hugely time consuming. Trish stepped in, volunteered, and you said, yeah, run with it. But all the meetings I observed, the town never appointed her to this position because there's no such position. So I don't think we need to accept the resignation. I think we have to acknowledge it.
That's fine. Yeah, at the point at which Tricia accepted the role, it was not a town newsletter.
Correct. So,
So
I think we
so fine. So we accept and appreciate her service, and we'll move on to item E. Tom Williams is emergency management regarding staff training. Is that something substantial there, Terry?
He's asking permission to schedule staff training on 2 segments on September 14th. There will be a daytime segment and there'll be an evening segment so that he can capture as many of us as possible. And he's just looking for the select board's blessing to educate as many of town employees, staff as he can in emergency response.
Okay, I'm happy to bless that effort. But Rick, how about you?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Do we need a motion to that effect, Terry, or can we just let him know that he can go forward with the scheduling?
I will just tell him that he has the board's support in going forward.
Okay. Great. And then item F is Jennifer Pease regarding use of the Pocket Park for the bridge dinner. Is that something substantive, or are we just saying we can do some dishes there or whatever?
Jennifer is looking for permission to set up a spot in the Pocket Park for tables for the caterer in preparation for the bridge dinner. So it's just a matter of whether or not, that's one portion of her request. The second piece is to set up a table on Bridge Street in front of the opticians, put up a small tent for ticket sales. And on that portion of the request, I would just make it clear that the tent can't extend out into the sidewalk far enough to impede handicapped accessibility.
Sounds like it'd be difficult to set up a tent there without blocking the sidewalk.
I agree.
Unless you took up unless you took up a parking space and did it like they do in Moonlight Magic or whatever.
Seems like it would be better to set up everything at the Pocket Park site or close to it.
I would agree, because the sidewalk is a lot wider there, and the park makes it a more open space for people to circulate.
There's plenty of room below where the tables would be for a tent. I don't know why it couldn't go there as well.
Yeah, I would make that approach to her, just to say we would grant her request to use the Pocket Park and say, why don't you do all your activities there?
Okay, I'll relay that to her.
Are you okay with that, Rick?
Absolutely.
All right. Lori Wheeler of the Arms, we did the mosaics. That was G. And then Chief Bardwell, already adoption of new police department policies, body cameras, detective, electrical weapons, taser. Is that something that requires more discussion and the chief, Terry, or is that?
The chief is away on vacation this week. I was hoping that each of you would have an opportunity to review the policies. If you'd like to discuss them with him, I can schedule him at our July 31st meeting. Otherwise, we should probably wait till the full board is present to adopt them.
Yeah, I apologize. I have not gone through the policies, so maybe we can take that up at the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Rick, any objection there?
No.
Okay. Have we done it all? Our next meeting is July 31st. Do we have any correspondence?
No correspondence.
Do we have any other business?
Cynthia Bettner would like to speak under public comment.
Okay. And I would just note for the record that I will be on vacation next week. So Terry, if you need me for any signings or things like that, I can do that between now and Friday.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then I'll be back on the 31st. Hopefully with a better internet connection. But no guarantees. So we are now at public comment. And Cynthia, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make an announcement, and just for the benefit of Rick, who may not realize that the Shelburne Energy Committee got a grant to help. It's called the Community First Partnership, to help residents and small businesses connect up with the Mass Save program. And I just wanted to let you all know that in the last 2 weeks of August, there's going to be a company called Energy Resources from Mass Save coming and doing energy assessments for small businesses. And that includes farms with electrified buildings, houses of worship, and nonprofit organizations. So they're going to be coming out and they'll be sending a postcard to all businesses between now and then to alert the ratepayers that this is going to be available to them. And so our job for the Energy Committee is to just help get the word out about it, and to let small businesses know that this is a above board thing. It's not some scam or anything. And also, I alerted the business networking and social group about it, and they got a word out to their members. And they've invited the man who's going to be doing the assessments, Derek Schulmack, to come to their meeting this Wednesday, and he'll be telling more about the program and what's available to them. So if you know of anyone that you think could benefit from this, please let them know both about the meeting on this this Wednesday, July 19th at 5:30. It's going to be held at Catamount Traders under their tent there. And people don't have to attend that. It's just a way to get more information about it. And then the actual door-to-door will be going on from August 14th to the 28th, and people have a chance to continue to sign up for their benefits up until, I think it's mid-September. So I think it's a great opportunity, and there's a lot of businesses that took advantage of it last year. There were 11 different businesses. So hopefully more will be able to take advantage this year. And I'm trying to get word out to the churches and the any nonprofits that are in the area. I let Lori Wheeler know about it in case that could be appropriate for Arms Library. So if you think there's anybody who might drop off the radar, please let me know. I just sent a message to Carolyn Wheeler and hope that things could go out through the Ag Commission to the farmers so that they know about it too. Because it's not necessarily something that would be thought about, that the small farms would be considered appropriate under the small business, even though that's exactly what they are. So that's just, I wanted to let you all know.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. And just an FYI to folks who may not be aware, the Catamount Traders is the former Mohawk trading post up on Route 2 there. So that's where this will be happening on July 19th at 5:30. Thank you, Cynthia. Anybody else on the line out there for public comment? Hearing none, I guess we're done with public comment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And I will second. All in favor, Rick?
Aye.
Andrew is aye, and we are adjourned. All
Thank you,
right.
guys. Thanks so much.
Back on July 31st. Yeah.